In today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast, Trajan Langdon spoke today, and he doesn't seem to be sure if the Pistons will be a better team next year. We'll break it down. Today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Khahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. I appreciate all of you everydayers who have been along the ride for the last 4 years since I started covering the Detroit Pistons for the Locked On Network. I've been a credential media member over the last 3 years. Appreciate all the everydayers. Appreciate everyone who subscribed, leaves a 5-star review on all the podcast platforms. Appreciate all of you guys. And today's episode is brought to you guys by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. In today's episode, we'll be breaking down, are we going to be seeing more point guard Jaden Ivey? How can he get better to improve at being a point guard if that's how he's going to be used next year? And are we going to see Ausar Thompson playing a lot of the 4 position next season? Is that why we haven't seen them get a backup 4? We'll break that down a little bit later as well. But we're going to start off with Trajan Langdon's comments. Really, this entire podcast is going to be about comments that we've got from Trajan Langdon today because they introduced. Why does my hat look like what's going on? My hat does not look like it usually. Like, what's going on? I guess that's a little better. Anyways, yeah, I don't know what's going on with my hat today. Anyways, well, this whole podcast is going to be about Trajan Langdon's comments today because they introduced Chaz Lanier. Right ahead of Summer League. Summer League takes place later on this week on Friday. They had the introductory press conference for Chaz, and Trajan Langdon spoke after the presser. And where we're going to start first is his comments about whether this team is going to be better next year. Now, I'm not going to play the whole 5-minute video of his response, but I'm just going to grab the quote that really matters here for what we're going to talk about here is he says, quote, "Will we be better? I'm not sure, but that comes from the growth of our young guys." And the entirety of this response he gave to a question about the season next year was really him just emphasizing that everything that could happen next year will be the result of the young guys. Everything that happens next year, whether it's good or bad, we are putting it in the hands of the young players. And there's a very strong voice on both sides of this argument within this community. There's a lot of people who agree with that. A lot of people who feel very strongly that you should be putting it into the hands of the young guys. Let's see what they can do. And then there's another section of the fan base that also is very loud, saying that you just won 2 playoff games for the first time in 17 years. You need to build on that. The expectation should be the second round of the playoffs. The expectation should be to take the next step, which is winning a playoff series. So I think, I guess where I want to go with this is that Trajan has not really shifted away from where he's been since his introductory press conference, all the way back, a year ago now. This is basically where he's been at for a year now. And even at the trade deadline last year, when the Pistons did make a move, they got Schroder. But before that, even when he said, we have been, shocked by how good we are, we didn't expect to be this good, even at that point, he also said that them being that good will not change how he feels about this team and change his long-term plans of this team, which very clearly seem to be, I want answers of the young core. I want answers about whether this team, this 4-man, 5-man group of young guys, 6-man group, however deep you think the young core is, I want these answers to know, can they lead us to the championship in years to come? Can they be the core of this team? And he hasn't shifted away from that. His moves in free agency have made that very clear. His moves in the offseason have made that very clear. By the way, before we move forward, I do want to make this clear to you guys. We had some announcements happen. Dennis Schroder, it was a sign and trade. The Pistons did get back a TPE. They traded one of their seconds to get a protected second up to, I believe, is protected all the way to 55. So it basically was, they just wanted the TPE. That's all they got. It's a $14.3 million TPE. We'll see if they actually use it. They have a year to use it here. But that has been completed. They did complete the Duncan Robinson sign and trade. They did complete the Caris LeVert signing. So it is official. The Pistons did operate as an over-the-cap team. They have a 5.1 biannual exception available to them still, the TPE and vet minimums. I think the team is probably done. I think maybe they sign a vet. Maybe they sign somebody out of the summer league to just fill out the roster to get the 14th guy. But I don't think anyone that gets added to the team to help fill out the roster will be anyone impactful on the rotation. I think they're just filling out the end of the bench now. I think this is the team you have. But just wanted to, I know that's some news that happened. I want to make sure I said that. But yeah, Trajan has made it clear that's what his plan is, and that's what his goal is since he got here. Now, whether it's a smart goal, I'll speak for both sides. For the side of wanting to know about your young guys, it's year 4, and you still don't really have an answer on whether Cade, Ivey, Ausar, and Duren can play together. It's unfortunate. You just haven't really gotten a chance. It is what it is. Ausar's first year with Ivey and Cade, obviously blood clots, and you have the Monty Williams situation where it seems like everyone kind of just likes to throw that one out the window because of everything that happened that year. The first year with Ivey and Cade, obviously Cade goes down for the entire year. So you missed that whole season. And then this past year, Jaden Ivey goes down in January before Ausar really comes back. So you just haven't been, it's been 4 years of at least Cade and Ivey, and you just haven't been able to see them. So however you feel about them as individual players, I think most people know how I feel about each one of those individual players. However you guys listening feel about each one of those individual players, there's just not a lot. There's some, but there's not a lot of sample of these two guys together to feel, I guess, 100% confident either way. You just don't have enough of a sample size with those two together. You definitely don't have enough sample size at all of Cade, Ivey, Ausar, and Duren, whether they can play together. So do you really want to make moves? Do you really want to move one of them? Do you really want to make I don't want to say franchise altering, because unless you're giving up Cade, it's not altering the franchise, but you guys know what I mean, like a bigger move that includes one of these young guys where you are shifting away from one of them. Do you really want to make one of those moves before you are absolutely 100% certain that, okay, this guy does not fit with what I want to build? This guy does not fit with this team building that I'm going for here. Do you want to do that before you 100% know? It doesn't seem like Trajan really wants to. And if you look at it from that perspective, you can kind of understand it. You can kind of get it. That's one. But if you look at it from the other perspective, I also can see it from that end too. You just won the first playoff games in 17 years. You have an all-NBA player. And this is where I was earlier in the offseason. Right after the season ended, I told you guys that the team could get better by just getting better on the margins. They didn't have to make a big move, even though I felt like a big move should be on the table. They don't have to do it, but it should be in consideration. I felt like they need to improve the rest of the rotation. I don't know if they really did that. I feel like they mostly stayed the same, to be honest. I feel like at most they stayed the same across the rotation. If you feel a little bit better about Caris, you feel a little bit better about Duncan over Malik, to each their own. They're basically the same. They're going to have relatively the same impact on this team. Like Trajan said, it's going to be the young guys if they get better. So they didn't really improve the rest of the rotation, in my opinion. You have an all-NBA player who is entering the first year of his max extension. You have a guy who made All-NBA second team, who is recognized now as a top 10 to 15 player in the NBA, who is ready. If he wasn't ready, I don't think the other side of this argument would have any type of argument. But because your main player, because your franchise star superstar is ready to take the next step, the people on this side are saying, why would you take a chance at wasting another year of Cade when he is ready to take this franchise to the second round or take it to wherever the next step is in your head? Wherever the next step is, your franchise player is ready for it. And at some point, you have to, and this is another part of the argument, at some point, it can't be, we have to find out about the young guys. It's been 5 years. Now, I understand unforeseen circumstances have made it tough to get sample size. I get both sides of the argument. But I also understand the fan that will say, man, it's been 5 years. It's about to be 6 years this upcoming season. How long do we need to know about young guys? You're entering year 4 of Ivey and Duren. You're entering year 5 of Cade here. How many years do you need? Like that, like I get that. I completely understand that perspective as well. At the end of the day, it's clear where the front office stands, And the hope is that you knock out two birds with one stone. That the young guys get better, and therefore by the young guys getting better, the team takes the next step anyways, which I'm sure is what Trajan would love to have happen. But you are taking a chance at that not happening. And that if this past year, where the Pistons had an incredible second half of the season, they deserved everything that came to them, but they also had a lot of things go right for them. They had, outside of Ivy, really good injury luck. Nobody else really missed any games. Like, Ausar was healthy for the entirety of the second half of the season. Cade was there basically the whole year. Tobias, outside of Ivy, you really did have good health all year. And then Stu missed a few games in the playoffs, which was unfortunate. But for the majority of the year, when you compare it to the rest of the teams, the Pistons did have some good health luck. Not the best, because obviously Ivy went down, but you still, compared to the rest of the league, you had better injury luck. Malik Beasley had a Klay Thompson type shooting year. So maybe, why take the risk at that maybe being, not, the year that everything went right, and then you take a step back this year because you didn't make any moves. I get both sides. At the end of the day, you're just going to have to hope that the young guys take a step forward. You're just going to have to hope, because that's where this franchise is going. That's where the front office is going. And that's really the Pistons' only hope at taking the next step this year. Because they didn't really improve the rest of the rotation. They maybe marginally got better. I see some people that think they marginally got worse in the rotation. Who knows? Whatever. They don't really have a backup four. But again, we can go on and on about this all day. All of this will be moot. All of this will not matter if Ivy comes out and takes a step. If Ausar comes out and takes a step. If Jalen Duren comes out and takes a step. None of that will matter, because if they take a step, the team will get better. But they don't have... It's not going to be on anybody else. And I think you could make the argument that by not improving the rest of the rotation as much as maybe I would like, you're not putting the young guys in the best position to take that next step. Either way, I think, and this is a long-winded way, I guess, of getting to the end here. I don't believe Trajan looks at this next year as we have to get better. I don't think that's how he's looking at this season. I think he's looking at this season as, I want answers about the young guys. If it's good answers, great. If they're bad answers, I got my answers. I think that's how he's looking at it. And then the year after it is where, you'll start seeing some moves made. But I think Trajan is very much looking at this year. If they take a step back this year, in the win column, I don't think he's necessarily sweating it. I don't want to say he doesn't care, but that's not really his goal. He wants to know, should I pay Ivy? Should I pay Duren? Am I going to give Ausar the extension this next offseason? I think that's what he wants answered, and then he'll go from there. Whether they win or lose this upcoming year, he doesn't really care. Either way, he gets his answer. I think that's where he's at, and I think some fans are probably going to be upset hearing that. I think some fans are going to rejoice hearing that. So let me know which side of the argument you are at with this. Comment section down below, or over on Twitter at Khahil. Coming up, he also said, Trajan Langdon that is, that he expects Jaden Ivey to come back strong and play a lot of point guard minutes. Is that the best idea for Jaden Ivey? We'll talk about it coming up. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Have you ever looked at your spending and been surprised how fast it adds up? Trust me, I didn't know how much I was spending on food delivery, but Monarch Money let me know, okay, you might need to start cooking a little bit more inside. It makes it a lot easier to budget. Helps, especially if you have a spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. It helps you. It helps a lot to budget with them and plan out your guys' goals monthly. Monarch does a great job of that. Me and my wife have been using it. It's been great for us. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year with Monarch Money. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Check out the description down below for the Substack, the Twitch, and the playback. Check it all out. Description down below. But let's go ahead and get into this today. Jaden Ivey, Trajan Langdon also had a lot to say about Ivey here. Yeah, I just lost the quote. If I can just get the quote up. He said, quote, "The one thing that gets lost in all of this is J.I.'s return. A lot of people are saying, how are you filling these guys that are exiting? I think he's going to fill a lot of those point guard roles and playmaking roles. And Caris will fill in for Dennis as well." So, let's hit on the Caris part just real quick. I think it's very clear that Caris, Ivey, and X player are all going to like split some of these playmaking reps and fill the void of what Schroder was bringing to the team after the second half of the season. That's very clear. Caris has ran some point guard throughout his career. He's been on ball quite a lot throughout his career. And like we said, I've tried to come around to the Caris signing. If he is the player he was last year, it should be a really good signing. Let's hope he doesn't regress to where he's been before last year. But as long as he is actually what he was last year, should be a fine signing. But now let's get to the Ivey part of this. It sounds like, and Trajan, before Trajan said this, we had a report from Mark Stein, I believe like a week and a half ago, that said the Pistons were gearing to lose Schroder because they wanted to give Ivey a lot of these backup point guard minutes. Everyone knows where I stand with Ivey. I think a lot of people have a good understanding of where I'm at with it. I think some people maybe go overboard with how negative, I guess, people would say I am on him. But I think people are aware on it. I don't want to spend this time during this segment talking about why I think point guard Ivey's a bad idea. I'd rather spend this segment talking about how can point guard Ivey be successful. Because right now he is an off-ball player. He thrives off-ball. We did this. We broke down his season review over on the Substack. It was the longest written article I had, longest written film breakdown I had. It was by far the most viewed article we had. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. You guys absolutely loved that one. Put a lot of work into it. And overall, just to summarize it, Ivey is a great off-ball. He is a great, maybe is extending it a little bit, but he's a really good off-ball player right now. As of right now, he struggles with the ball in his hands. So is it the best idea to put the ball in his hands and tell him be a backup point guard? I would say probably not, but that's not where I want to go with this. I want to go with, okay, how can he be successful in this? And there's one more area I want to go with it as well, in more of a positive light. Before we get into how he can get better, I think the reason why Trajan's putting this responsibility on Jaden Ivey, I think it's very clear. I think it's absurdly clear, is that, like we mentioned in the first segment, this season is about getting answers. And I believe that Trajan views, if Ivey is going to be a part of my long-term team building, if I am going to pay Jaden Ivey money to keep him around here long-term, he needs to be a really good combo guard. We don't have a lot of sample size on it, so I'll give him this year to show us. If he can be it, I'll pay him. If not, we might have to move in a different direction. But I believe Trajan is putting this responsibility on J.I. because he is saying, basically, without actually saying it, if you want to be a main piece of this team long-term, you can't just be a good off-ball player. We need you. The guy I want on this team that I want to build forward with has to be a really good combo guard. You're really good off-ball, and you're really good on-ball. If you can be that, we will pay you. I'm assuming it's probably going to go into restricted free agency, but maybe they strike something before the end of the offseason. I don't think that's likely, but it's not impossible. But if J.I. can prove that I am a really good off-ball player, and I've improved as an on-ball guy, I can be that, and I am a legit combo guard, then Trajan's like, okay, we can build with you. But if Trajan feels like, okay, you've shown us that you can't be this backup point guard, or you can't handle these point guard reps, I don't feel comfortable paying just an off-ball guard, he gets his answer nonetheless. It's kind of like it's really exactly what we talked about in the first segment. So I believe that's why you're seeing Trajan do this. Because I don't think he really cares, or he'd like to see Jaden Ivey succeed, obviously. Everyone would like to see it. But my point is, I don't think Trajan really cares about whether it translates to win-losses, because he gets his answer either way. I think all Trajan's in the search for right now is answers. He doesn't care how he gets the answer, as long as he gets that answer. And whether it's a good answer or a bad answer, it informs him of how he wants to act moving forward. So I think that's why we're getting this right now. But now let's get into what Jaden Ivey can do to improve. What can Jaden Ivey do to actually succeed in this role? So the main thing for me, if we're going to get more minutes of Jaden Ivey as the backup guard, he's going to get another crack at this. The main part that Jaden Ivey, I think, has to get better at the very least, he has to get better at, he cannot continue to turn the ball over as much as he does. A lot of people talk about A lot of people talk about Cade Cunningham's turnovers. He turns the ball over a lot. He also had a very high usage rate. So the fact that he did turn the ball over as much as he did with the high usage rate he had, plus he had how much playmaking he actually was doing, it evens out. My point is, when you don't have the ball as much as Cade, and you have a higher turnover percentage than him, that's a concern. Cade this past year, despite how large his usage rate was, had a 16.0 turnover percentage. Ivey, despite having the ball much less, having more than 7% points less of a usage rate than Cade and played a lot off ball, he had a higher turnover percentage than Cade this year. He averaged 3.0 turnovers a game. I don't want to just make it a raw assist to turnover ratio because that's not always the biggest. It doesn't paint the biggest story or the best picture all the time, but he did turn over the ball a ton this past year. And a lot of it came with him at the point of attack as the lead guard. So if he can clean up some of those turnovers, I think that will make this experience a lot easier for him. I think he needs to improve his handle in the in-between game. If he can get a lot stronger with the handle, I think that will help him a ton as well. I think that's one of the weaknesses I saw during his film breakdown when we did his season review, is that his handle just is not as good as you'd like it to be, especially when he's at a full head of steam, he gets the defense on their their heels, I should say. That's when he's at an advantage. But when really, anytime a defender kind of gets a swipe at the ball or kind of puts Ivey into a position where he has to kind of counter or make a decision after his first decision doesn't gain that advantage, that's when he struggles with his ball handling a little bit. So if he can improve his ball handling, I think that will help him a ton. I think that is probably the main weakness he has as a lead guard here. So improve the ball handling. I think he can do much better with this. The next part of this that I think he must get better at is his decision-making once he gets to the paint. We've talked about Ivey's ability to get to the paint a ton. I'll pull up the numbers right now. Ivey has no problems at all at getting to the paint. He is an automatic paint touch. Almost anytime he wants to get to the paint, he can get there. According to Clean the Glass, he got to the rim on 36% of his shots. That's 89th percentile across the NBA. He can get to the rim over and over and over and over and over again. That's not the problem. Problem is his decision-making once he gets to the rim must improve. So, and what I mean by that is his finishing numbers, we've talked about it, they're not great. How could he improve those finishing numbers? Well, yeah, improving on his touch and, converting easy looks, maybe try to dunk a little bit more. But really, what could help him as well is, okay, maybe some of these tough shots I'm taking at the rim, instead of trying to take these ones, maybe I turn them into a kick out. Maybe I turn them into a dump off. Maybe I turn them into keeping my dribble alive and surveying the field a little bit more, surveying the court. You guys get what I mean. I think that is a really, really big thing. The ball handling and the decision-making once he gets to the rim. Remember last offseason, a lot of my argument for Ivey was that he's a great paint touch, but he's not making anything of the paint touches because he's not a great finisher and he wasn't making the right decisions. Now, if he improves upon that, I think that makes it a lot better with him as a backup point guard, because really what you want out of your lead guards or your lead ball handlers, you need them to be advantage creators. And Ivey doesn't have a problem at creating the advantage. He can create the advantage because he's an instant paint touch. He's very quick. He's very fast. He's one of the fastest players with the ball in their hands in the league. So he can create the advantage with relative ease. It's more so about what does he do once he creates that advantage. And that's why he has such a high turnover percentage. That's why his finishing is down through 3 years. Because once he creates that advantage, he hasn't been the best at making the right decision off of that. So if he can make the better decisions, maybe turn some of those tougher looks at the rim into a kick out, into a dump off, into keeping your dribble alive, I think that will help him a ton. I think that's where he really struggles with right now. And if he can improve that, then the backup point guard minutes and him improving as a combo guard should be legit. Those minutes should go well, and he should get paid by Trajan Langdon. I think those are the main areas I would focus on. I don't need to see him hitting mid-range jumpers. I don't need to see him being able to score in the isolation. That's not what I really need to see from him, or I think Trajan needs to see from him to feel confident about him. I think Trajan would like to see him continue to be a good off-ball player, which he really has been throughout his whole career, and show that he is a better decision-maker with the ball in his hands. He's improved as a ball handler. And when he gets these advantages, when he creates these advantages within the half court, he's making the right decision out of them. And if he does that, everything should go good. And he should feel good about his season. Trajan should feel good about him. And he should get a lucrative contract. And I think everybody would feel a lot better moving forward if that's some things that Ivey improves upon. I'm not going to say it isn't there. It definitely is there. He has the tools. He's quick. He's fast. He gets to the paint. He gets to the paint a ton. Like, it's there. It's just these areas of growth that I'm talking about were areas of growth coming out of the draft. And we're still waiting on these to happen. And this is really, this is a make or break year for Ivey. Entering year 4, when you may or may not have an extension, especially if he's not given an extension this offseason. This is a make or break year for him. He has to show improvement in these areas. And it seems like Trajan is willing and really confident to give him all of the chances possible to take these reps and show everybody that he has improved and he is willing or he is capable of doing this and deserves this contract extension. So that's where I stand with it. I think Jaden Ivey plays his best when he's next to a point guard. I think he's best as an off-ball guy. But like I mentioned earlier, I understand why Trajan may be putting him in this position because he feels like that if I want Ivey on my team long-term, I want a guy, my 2-guard, whatever it is, I want my 2-guard to be able to handle on-ball responsibilities and be good off-ball. So I want Ivey to prove to me he can do that. I get why Trajan's doing it. So hopefully it goes all well for Ivey. He improves his ball handling and decision-making. He is the answer. That would be the best outcome for the Pistons and for himself. So let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. How do you guys feel about point guard Ivey this upcoming season? You guys think it's a good idea? Do you agree with Trajan doing it? What's your overall feelings? Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. Coming up, Ausar Thompson. He had some comments about Ausar getting much bigger. Does this mean we should be readying ourselves to see Ausar Thompson at the 4 position? We'll talk about it coming up. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Check out the description down below for the Substack, Playback, Twitch, all of that. Appreciate all of you guys, everyone being an everydayer, all of you guys checking out Locked On Pistons, making it your first listen of every single day. I appreciate all of you guys. All right, let's get to the next set of comments from Trajan Langdon after introducing Chaz Lanier, which we are going to have a Summer League preview. Don't worry, it's probably going to be the next episode, but it's still, Summer League doesn't start till Friday, so I wasn't going to do my preview 3 days before Summer League and then have multiple episodes in between there. It'd get lost in the shuffle. So we will have some, but just give me, we're going to wait it out a little bit. All right, so Trajan did speak about Ausar a little bit, and he kind of just reiterated some comments that he had a few weeks ago at the pre-draft presser. He said, quote, "You're going to see a different Ausar. He's gotten bigger," end quote. So, and Trajan made it very clear at the pre-draft a few weeks ago that he wanted Ausar to get a lot stronger. And we talked about it on the podcast. He wanted Ausar to get stronger, have a lot more time in the gym. He also mentioned that Ausar has been at the practice facility all summer. And me hearing that takes me back all the way to before Ausar's rookie season when we had his trainer on the podcast. And we asked him about, what can you talk about, with Ausar's work ethic? And he said he's never been around a player that works as hard as Ausar. And then he talked about that story, if you guys remember, how Ausar, during his rookie season, he felt like he couldn't find a gym to open up, even though he's an NBA player. He could get a gym opened up whenever he wanted. But because he felt like he couldn't get a gym opened up, and, he didn't have access to that kind of stuff, he was just practicing on random courts outside, like down in Florida, I believe, where where they were training. He would just find random courts outside and just go start training there. So the work ethic is off the charts with Ausar, is basically what I'm saying. And I don't doubt at all that he's been at the practice facility all summer, especially because we have gotten clips of Amen, his brother, at these random places training. And I have thought to myself, like, I don't see Ausar at these, training with his brother. He must be at the Pistons practice facility. They must have a really strict plan for him that they want for him, and he's bought in. And it sounds like that is what's happening. But to segue this, because I really want to get to this point, if Ausar is getting bigger, if he's putting emphasis on Ausar getting bigger, I think it's you can do 2 + 2 = 4 and say, okay, he's probably wanting Ausar to get bigger because they have a lack of a backup 4 in the roster, and they probably want Ausar to take up some of those minutes at the backup 4. here are my thoughts on that. You guys know I'm not the biggest fan of Ausar at the 4. I have a few reasons why, but there are positives to doing it too. Ausar is such an insane defender in really every which way that there are pros to having him at every spot on the floor. Like, you obviously having him away from the 4, you have him at the point of attack. I think we'll see it next year. I think there's already an argument right now. I would make that argument right now that he is the best point of attack defender in the entire NBA. I think he's the best point of attack defender in the league. I think next year he will be an all defensive member for that reason primarily. So that's why you want him away from the 4. You want him on the perimeter, guarding the other team's best ball handler, shutting them down, and just taking them out the game. And we saw him do that numerous times this past year. I feel like that's where he's at his best at. That's what makes him special. But then you also get games like the one against Cleveland at the end of the year, when it's him and Duren at the 4-5, and you got Ausar as a weak side rim protector, swatting Donovan Mitchell shots, meeting Jared Allen at the rim, getting the rebound, then pushing in transition. Like, Ausar is so special on defense in so many different ways that you can play him at the point of attack and he'd be excellent. You can play him on, off ball and have him just roam off ball in the passing lanes and he'd be great at that. You can have him as a weak side rim protector, as a defensive rebounder to clean it up and then push in transition. He's also great at that. Like, there's so many different ways in which you can utilize Ausar that, yeah, if you play him at the 4, you're still going to get benefits out of it. If you play him on the perimeter, you're going to get benefits out of it because he's that versatile of a defender. I think that, tell me if you guys think I'm wrong with this. I'd love to hear from a lot of you guys about this. Matt, just close your eyes and picture a game. You're going against a star guard on the perimeter, and Ausar is not the one checking him. You have someone else checking him. Is anybody happy with that? So that's why I don't, I would not be happy about that. So that's why I don't want Ausar playing these 4 minutes, because that means he's not going to be at the point of attack. He's not going to be the guy guarding the best team's point guard or shooting guard, whatever, whoever is the best player, because he's down at the 4 playing, weak side, whatever it is. I think every minute you do that, you're wasting a possession. That's just my opinion. But there are benefits to playing at the 4 as well. My biggest concern, though, that I want to get to, though, with him playing the 4 is not Omari. I'm looking at Omari's tweet here from Trajan. Trajan has said numerous times he wants Ausar to get stronger. And you can get stronger without, getting, bigger. Like, if you played sports your whole life, you can get stronger without, putting on 20 pounds of weight. You can get stronger and just put on, 3 or 5 pounds of weight, but you're just, you're more, what's the word? I don't want to say muscular, but you have more strength to you, right? That's fine. I completely agree with that. That would be cool. If they're trying to get Ausar to get to 225 or 230, if they actually are trying to get him to get wider and bigger, I think that's a negative for him. I've watched Ausar going all the way back to OTE. You guys know how high I was on Ausar coming out of the draft and wanting him at 5. I've watched Ausar basically his whole career. Part of what makes Ausar special, and really this goes for his brother too, but he's not on the team, so whatever. But what makes Ausar special is because his light frame allows him to be as fast, as quick as he is, laterally, as agile as he is, as straight line speed as he is, and it also allows him to skinny up over screens, and why he's so good at getting through screens, and why just setting a screen on him at the point of attack doesn't work because he gets through them. It also is why he's able to check smaller guards, because he's so fast and so quick, and he's able to skinny up. He has a lighter frame. There's some guys that you don't really want to get huge. Some guys they need to get big. Some guys you don't really want them to get too big because it kind of takes away from what they're great at. I'm concerned that if you make Ausar too big, you're running into the problem that the Orlando Magic had with Jonathan Isaac this year, where before the year, they're like, you know what, let's make him bigger, let's get stronger, let's put on a bunch of muscle, let's do that, we think that would be good for you. Then they struggle, and then at the end of the year, both the Magic and Jonathan Isaac come out and say, yeah, we thought getting bigger before the year would be better for me, but turns out it really slowed me down. I wasn't able to impact the game how I usually, it was a mistake. We definitely want him to be lighter. So, I think that would be the same thing with Ausar. Now, I could be reading into this too much. Maybe he is just saying, and I'm hoping this is what he really is saying, is that he's just getting stronger. He's not putting on 15, 20 pounds. They're not trying to get him to be a full-time power forward. They just want him to get a little stronger, which he absolutely should get a little stronger. You want him always, you want him to be as strong as he possibly can without taking away his strengths. But if what he's mentioning is that they want him to put on like legit pounds and try to get to that 225 area, I just have legit concerns that I don't know if that's best for Ausar. I think, for example, I think Ron would benefit much more from putting weight on than Ausar would. I think Ron plays a much more physical downhill kind of style, and he doesn't really rely on his quickness and agility and lateral quickness as much. Ron plays a lot more just like a burly type of style, whereas Ausar is more finesse. He is much more he's more athletically gifted, and I think you guys get what I'm saying. I think Ron would be much more suited to put a lot more weight on. I think that would help him a lot more. I don't know if that benefits Ausar, but I could be reading too much into this. At the end of the day, Ausar and Ron will probably cut and split some of those minutes at the 4 position because right now they just don't have another backup 4. I just hope that they're not trying to make Ausar change his whole body frame, because I don't think that would be great for him. But let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. How do you guys feel about this? Do you guys think Ausar should be getting bigger? Do you guys like him at where he's at right now? Do you like him at the backup 4 position, taking some of those minutes? Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out, everybody.